part 5 of an introduction to digital audio production with the Tom Cosm. So last time we got to this stage of the song, we kind of had an intro going on. We've got the guts of the main drop going on. For this section I thought we'd work a little bit on a bit of a breakdown and a build up and go into a second drop, a nice standard dance music tune with a drop in the middle. So just listening to what we've got here. So where does it get busy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this area here, these 8 bars, because this is quite a busy part. We've got our hi-hats in and our percussion and all that. So I've selected that by clicking up the top left and dragging all the way down to the master and making sure I select those 8 bars. And I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to go over to the right here, so we can work on the drop. It's not going to let us zoom over to the right here, so I'm just going to move the loop marker across just so we've got quite a bit of space, blank space over on the right. And then we have to figure out how long we want this drop to be. So usually good rule of thumb is, if you want to do a short one, you can do 8 bars. If you want to do a long one, 16. Let's do 32. So this area here, this is going to be where our breakdown happens. So at 129 we want everything to come back in, so I'm going to select up the top left on the bass for example channel up here at 129, and I'm going to paste what we copied before. So that's where the drop's going to happen and everything's going to come back in. So now we've kind of got this middle section we can work on leading up to that point. While I've got that selected, I'm just going to duplicate it 3 times just so we've got some substance to go there. So again, good. Now first thing I'm going to do is, where did we put that white noise before? So we've got some white noise here. I'm going to solo that track and have a listen. So we've got a build up here, if you remember. So let's copy that and we'll paste it here. So that means now we've just got a little subtle build up that's going to happen throughout this breakdown. You notice we cut this short at the last one because we had a little gap before it dropped. Let's just bring that across to make sure it goes all the way. And that actually stops halfway there, and we don't want that. So if we go into the the effects chain of the white noise and we find our auto filter here, which is doing the big sweep of the noise up, let's click on the frequency and you can see the frequency goes up. It opens up the white noise, but then it takes it away again and brings it up. We don't want that. We want the white noise to go all the way up. So I'm just going to double click on these points to remove them, and there we go. We notice the resonance peaks there as well. We don't want that either, so we're going to get rid of those points. Let's have a listen. And also the decay time changes. So let's remove those points. Let's bring the decay time up a bit on the reverb. So we've got a really big kind of spacious build. A big epic white noise sweep, and it'll drop back into the tune. Okay, what happened there? So if we go back to the cutoff, we see that the cutoff turned off there. Let's get rid of that just so we can have a bit of a sounds good. Also notice the threshold goes back up on the compressor, which is side chaining from the kick, so that's making the white noise duck. Let's bring that back down to this value so that when it does drop, it has that pumping effect. Very cool. Okay, so let's put some substance in here. So these pads are quite nice. We've already got some ideas developed, so let's use them and modify them a bit. We can add something in a bit later if we feel that it's lacking a bit of substance. That sounds all good. So let's copy it from the intro, because that's where the nice lush pads were that weren't being gated. So let's put those in there. And we had this theme going on here. And I reckon about halfway through here, let's bring the kick in. So I'm just duplicating that, Command D, Control D on the PC. But this kick, let's make it not as substancy as the main kick. So what we can do is if we go to this kick channel, and you can see we've got our EQ8 which we've put on our kick. Whoops, I just closed that down. So here we go. If we look at this pole here, what can we do? We want this kick to be not as punchy. I've got an EQ8 here. What were we using that for? Let's have a look. You can see, so this, you can see how this EQ8, this device was turned on for the intro. So let's do the same for this kick here, which will just take away a bit of the punch of the kick, which is good because we want the real punchy kick to come in when it drops, and so this will give it a bit of contrast. Kind of gives the illusion that the kicks come in when in fact when it really does come in, it's excellently better. So I'm going to just make sure I've got it on I'm changing the device on off of this second EQ8, which is used to muffle the kick. You can see we've got our EQ there, which takes away the substance. So double click here and turn that on, and we'll drag this back so that EQ8 is always on over this kick here. So there's the kick with that EQ8, and this is with it off. So you can hear it's a bit more punchy. When you click this little button up here, if your automation lines go a kind of a dimmed colour, it means that it's picked up that you've tried to change something with the actual effect, but it's supposed to be doing something different. So what by you changing it, it overrides that particular effect, and we switch it back by clicking this button. So you see at the moment it's gone this colour. If we click this, it's gone back. So now it'll actually do exactly what the line says. Now I reckon a good idea, this synth stab here which we've got as our theme, I reckon we should try a different sound for this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click at the start of the breakdown part of the synth stab, which is here. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to push Command E or Control E on the PC, which will cut that loop separately. So it's given me a separate loop. So now what we can do is I'm going to duplicate the synth stab channel, and if we do that by going Edit, Duplicate, or Command or Control D. So now we have two exact copies of this synth stab track, and so I'm going to remove all of the MIDI clips from there because that's where we want this one to play. I'm going to remove the MIDI clips from here because that's where we want the new one to play, and depending on how we sound, we could leave both of these on or one of these on or whatnot. So now if we go to this synth stab and solve it, we can open it up and we can actually go around and change something. Now there's a filter delay which is off, so we don't need that, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, what do we got here? So let's start by changing the sound. So if we go over to this analog here, let's turn one of these oscillators off for a second. So we're only going to be working with oscillator 2, which is a square wave. Actually, let's work with oscillator 1. Change it to a square wave. Let's make it an octave up. Let's move this filter around, see what it sounds like. Not bad. If we play with the envelope of the filter, maybe give it a little bit of noise. I'm going to turn this reverb off for now, just so it's very clean. Let's play with this envelope a bit more, just bringing the decay time and sustain around. Bring the volume of the noise down a bit. I was just changing the colour of the noise around to make it a bit more bright. Do we have a filter over here? Let's have a look. I might turn this overdrive off. Let's delete that overdrive altogether. What was it called? Let's get rid of the chorus as well. Let's get a nice clean. And let's add a filter delay. Now, filter delay, of course, is a delay in Ableton which has 3 different delays, and each delay can be set to a different time, and each tail of the delay can be cut off. So, for example, if I turn these 3 off, the 2 off, so we've got an L, R, and an LR, which stands for left, right, and that's for the concept of you have one delay in your left ear, one in your right ear, and one in the middle, and it creates a really cool effect. I'll turn them all on just so you can have a quick listen, actually. That's kind of cool, but if I'm just going to turn these 2 off for now, so we've just got the center one. See how this is set on 1. We could change this to 3. And see if I move this filter by clicking on this button, it's a bandpass filter. So again, here's your frequencies here. So this is your lowest frequency, this is your highest frequency, and then up and down is volume. So if we move this dot around, see it's only going to let through the frequencies that are in this little band. So if we bring it up really high, the delay's only going to delay the high end of the sound. Bring it down. Bring it right up. You can also see this filter part of this delay has a corresponding cutoff value, so we can just drag that up and down, and of course you see we've got our line up there, and we can change the resonance of the band here. Or we can just click on the dot and drag it, it's a bit more fun. Change it to. So let's leave that on 3 for now, that was quite nice. We can bring the volume of the delay down if the delay is a bit loud. We can bring the feedback up or down. So the feedback is how long the delay goes for. If the delay goes at 100. See, now this filter delay is a little bit dangerous because you can set the feedback to 100. So by doing that, the delay is going to continue to go, well, it's not going to go indefinitely because we have a filter, and the filter is actually going to act by slowly degrading and taking away the frequencies of the delay. So if this filter is completely open, or as open as it can be, and we play it, you can hear that's just going to continue to delay if that's set on 100. So let's not make that 100, let's put it on 0. So it's only going to delay once. So it kind of sounds nice as I move that up and down. So if I move this frequency up and down, you can see we've got our line. So what we could do is let's move this line around and automate it. So we start up quite high, and then we sweep it down low. See how it's moving as I move the line. We can bring this back up high again. And we can just, we'll create a new automation line from that parameter. And if we click on this plus symbol, it creates a new automation line just for that particular parameter. See, filter delay, the second filter frequency, which is this knob here. So I can select that and I can duplicate it. And we'll do that 4 times. So not bad. But now let's play with the ones on the left and the right hand side. This is where the fun comes in. Now these don't have to be on the left and right hand side. They've just called them left and right because I guess that's their most common use. But if we look over on the chain, you can see we've got a pan value. So on the L, it's panned completely to the left, and on the R, it's panned completely to the right. And the LR is panned in the middle. So if we turn these on, it's all good. But we don't have to stick to the syncing here. We can turn the sync off, and we can specify how long those little echoes take ourselves. And by clicking it to time, we get millisecond values, which can get really short. So if I turn these two off here and just play the left one now, can you hear how short that delay is? Bring it up. Drag it down. Now if you find you can't drag this at a small enough increment, if you hold down the Command or Apple key, you can drag it much finer. You can get a much finer increment. Or if you like, you can actually just type in a value and push return. Let's turn on the right one and do the same. So turn on the right one, turn off the sync. So that's quite cool. I actually like sweeping that up and down. So as always, we've got a line which corresponds to that particular parameter that we're dealing with. So again, just because I have that selected, I can click on the plus, and now we have filter delay 3 time delay. So that changes that time value. And I like that. I like it sweeping around. So let's move it up and down. Let's make it a bit shorter than before. We'll drag it to, I'm holding down the Apple key again to get small increments. Let's drag it to, let's try 48. And we'll drag it back down. And I'm going to duplicate that, but for the second time let's make it go a little bit longer. Great, so let's select that and duplicate it across. And let's do the same with the left hand side delay. So we clicked on the time value and clicked on the plus symbol, and now we have filter delay 1 time delay, which is this one here. So we can do, it'd be quite cool to do the opposite of what's happening here, I think. Might create some kind of strange spatial thing. So that value is 48.9. So let's introduce a dot here on this line by double clicking and holding down the command key, of course. What was it again? 48.9. So roughly let's get that value. There we go, 48.9. And this value is 1 millisecond. So let's create a point here. 1 millisecond and another double click back up to 48.9. So as you can see, this side starts with an open, longer delay, slowly goes down to a very short one and goes back up. This one does the opposite, and this is happening on the left-hand side, this is happening on the right. So let's see what that sounds like. We've got the middle one turned off at the moment as well, we're just working with the two. Cool. So let's duplicate that one across, and let's put the LR back in, or the middle one. It's kind of cool. I'm going to take this limiter which is in the middle of our chain now and put it at the end, because this delay was peaking things out a bit. So now we're back to greenlining it here. And of course what we can do is we can use the auto filter to slowly bring that in. So if I've clicked on the cutoff value of the auto filter, here's our cutoff line. It's already at its most open position, so let's add in another point. So we drag it down, we'll create a slope for us. So, and of course as this opens up here, it's going to delay after the filter, which is important because if the filter was after the filter delay, the filter is also going to cut off the tail of the delay or the echo, whereas if it's over here, the filter is going to delay the actual sound as it's opening up, which is a nicer effect, I think. So let's have a listen from here. So the filter's right down, you can hear it slowly coming in. I'm going to take the solo off. You can see on this filter slope here, it cuts off when it drops. Let's turn that off so it doesn't cut off. Make it nice and busy. Get rid of these dots by double clicking. Bad. I think that cutoff takes too long to come up, so I'm going to create another point here and drag it up, so it's already fully open when it gets to this point here. And I think it's too high, so I'm going to play around with the analog again and get a deeper sound. Actually, at this stage, let's use the operator instead. Now, the operator is another synthesizer which is native to Ableton. It's a bit more complex than the analog, so I'm not going to get into a very deep discussion of the operator. There's some fantastic tutorials out there on sound design using the operator. I've been using the analog because it's very nice subtractive synthesizer, oscillator, filter, amplitude, envelopes, and then you've got some LFOs. But if we open up the operator and have a quick look at it, let's just try and make a new sound. So I've loaded it up, and this is what the operator looks like. We've got these operators here, which are basically the oscillators, but you see we've got 4 of them, and we can just, as with the analog, use these single oscillators if you want as oscillators in the traditional subtractive sense, where we pick a waveform and it turns into, it goes out the output, and then we can turn that one on and we've got 2 waveforms and they join together. The thing about the operator though is you can, instead of sending the 2 oscillators, let's say A and B, out the main master output of the synthesizer, we can actually use them to modulate each other. So we could say, well, instead of B being a saw wave and mixing with A being a saw wave, we could say B is a sine wave and it's going to modulate A. So the only saw wave, or the only waveform that we actually hear is A, but it's being modulated and messed with by whatever's happening over here on B. And then of course C could modulate B and D could modulate C. So it gets, you can kind of rack things up in these nice complex kind of grid styles. If we click over here on this kind of, this is, I guess you call it the output tab of operator, you can see we can pick how we want all of these 4 units to talk to each other. So we've got all these different shapes here. So this one here, you can see the lines coming down out of each one. This would basically be a 4 oscillator subtractive synthesizer, because each one of the 4 is coming straight out. Whereas this one, you can see A is the only one coming out, B is going into A, C is going into B, and D is going into C, and there's all these ones in between. So you can get very, very, very technical on this, and it's a lot of fun if you're into kind of doing something new and exciting with synthesis. Look into it. Operator or frequency modulated synthesis is the correct term. There's also some commercial software out there which does the same thing. So for now, I've gone into this tab here and I've just selected the final one, which, as I said, outputs each oscillator at the same time. So there's no frequency modulation going on here. So if I click back here and we've soldered it, let's have a listen. And it's very quiet because the filter is off. So let's turn the filter off. So at the moment, this A oscillator is the only thing that's making noise, because if we look on the level knob, you can see it's the only one that's turned up. All the rest are turned down to negative infinity, which means they're not going to play at all. So if we click on this oscillator, you notice if I click on any of the units, oops, I just turned that off, any of the units, or the 8 tabs if you want, it changes what happens in the middle. So each one of these actually has a whole lot more parameters than what's just in the tab. For instance, if we click on, or just like before when we clicked on this one, it brought up all of our kind of master global MIDI commands. You know, we can pick the modulation routing, and we can change a bunch of other stuff here. But we want to go to this first oscillator. So here's my oscillator and operator. What we can do, we've got a coarse and a fine. This is just for the tuning. So if I bring coarse down to 0.5 by dragging it down, octave lower, is an octave 1, 2, 3. So we can get really, really crazy and go up there. We can change the fine tune of it if you want to do something crazy like that. And of course, if we look over into the middle, we've got an envelope of the amplitude of the oscillator, or the volume of the oscillator. So for example, if we I'm just going to turn the MIDI on here just so I can play individual notes. So I'm just using my QWERTY keyboard to play some notes. And let's just turn the filter delay off so we can play with this operator a bit more. So see, if I bring the release up, it's going to take 7.63 seconds for the note to die. But if we bring that right down to 1 millisecond, as soon as we let go of the key, it's going to stop. So let's leave it on that for now. So that's your basic envelope, and you've got your attack. So it's going to take 2.23 seconds for the volume to get to the top when I push the note. But we don't want to do that for now. So we've got the envelope. If we go over to oscillator, you can see we can change our wave shape over here. So these are the wave shapes that came with it. We've got some interesting ones. The saw D and the square D are your standard saw and square waves. We've got a triangle, white noise, and white noise looped. So let's pick a square wave. There we go. And what we could do is we could bring up another one of these oscillators. So let's say oscillator B. And you see our oscillator B is a sine wave. So it's kind of smoothing it out a bit. So let's bring the coarse up to 2, so it's an octave higher. So now we're going to have a saw wave 1 octave and a sine wave an octave above that. All good. Let's change the wave shape of the second oscillator to something else, maybe another square. That's kind of cool. What else we got? Over here we've got our LFO. So if we click on the LFO tab, we can turn the LFO on. We can pick the wave shape of the LFO. Remember, an LFO stands for low frequency oscillator. So it's an oscillator which is pulsing slowly, which you can attach to something. And you can define what you want to attach it to by over here where it says LFO dest A, which stands for destination A. So where do you want the destination of the slowly pulsing machine to send to? Here are our options: A, B, C, D, so oscillator A, B, C, and D, and fill, which is the filter, cutoff. So if we leave this on, this oscillator is going to change the pitch of A, B, C, and D. But we've only got A and B playing, but we'll leave it on A, B, C, and D anyway. Turn the amount up. So if I just play a long steady note, you'll be able to hear how that LFO is affecting the pitch. If I bring the amount down. So the amount is how much it affects it by. If I bring the rate up, this is how fast it goes. sounds. It's not going to sound actually that good because we've got such short notes on the synth. So what we could actually do, if we go to the oscillator A, and remember when I go back to the envelope tab, remember when I moved the release up, it made the note last for a long time. So if I move that release up while it's playing, so that release value, that could be a fun one to play with as we build up. So it could start really short and then open up. You see we've got a line up the top, so we can drag that down so the release is short. And let's say about at this stage we'll start bringing it right up like that. And then we'll select it when it drops and bring it back short again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag some more points here to give this a bit of a curve upwards. So it makes it slowly creep in, and then just as it's starting to get really hectic, it all sweeps in at once. It's a bit more kind of expressive than a straight line, diagonal line. Over here on this limiter, I'm going to turn it down a bit because it's a bit loud. Let's go have a look at that release. See it moving up. Kind of cool. This second oscillator is a bit too loud, so let's bring the level down a bit. Let's bring it down an octave. Right down. Just going to bring the amount down of the LFO. Just on a note, that LFO we can choose from this drop down menu whether we want it to go at a very low rate, which is what it's on at the moment, so it'll go very low, as in it'll go slowly. So that's very slow. If we bring it right up, pitch it down low. If we put it on high, it's going to go fast. Then ridiculously fast. And if we put it on sync, it's going to sync up with the beats. So this will go to 16th, an 8th, so that's one beat, quarter. Sorry, an 8th is every half beat, quarter is every beat, half a bar, one bar. We can do a triplet as well, which can be kind of fun. So it's just showing off the oscillator a bit, sorry, the LFO. If we turn the filter on, turn the amount right down, turn the filter on. So we've got low pass filter here, we can choose band passes or high passes or notch passes. Let's just keep it on a low pass. And if we go to the LFO, we can actually specify the filter as a destination for the LFO as well, so we could turn off these four. So now the LFO is only going to apply to the filter. Put this back on low. If we turn the resonance up on the filter, you'll be able to hear how it really does affect it. we're at it, I'll show off this pitch tab as well. So here's our note. If I turn the pitch envelope on, it's going to create a new envelope. So remember, an envelope is a little set of instructions which you can apply to something to make them change over time rather than you having to actually draw something in. So a pitch envelope, every time you hit a note, it'll change the pitch of the sound according to this pattern here. So at the moment, with it just on, I have to turn the actual envelope amount up. So this is how much, it's like the amount of the LFO, this is how much of the pitch envelope is being applied to the pitch of the note. So kind of here the note starts slightly above pitch and then comes back down. But what we could do is we could bring this point up, which is they call it the peak. We could bring this right up, and it's working in semitones here. So this is 48 semitones. So this note is going to start 48 semitones above the original note. 48 semitones being 4 octaves, because remember there is 12 semitones in an octave. So and then what we can do is we can bring this decay time back. So we can do that by dragging the square. It's a bit fiddly. We can bring the decay time back. So this is how long it takes to get from those 42 semitones up really, really high down to whatever this line is set at, which is, if we look at our sustain level, is 0 semitones, or the original pitch of the note. So if it's very short, you can hardly hear it. This is really handy if you want to get a real punchy bass line as well, like a sub bass. If I go down a few octaves, going to turn this oscillator off, and we'll make this oscillator a sine wave just so we can get a sub sound. Oh, we've made ourselves a kick. That's pretty cool. Make it go off an octave. See, without the pitch envelope, it's just a nice subby sine wave. With the pitch envelope, we can bring the envelope amount down. It's a bit too much. See how that sub has a bit of a punch to it now? It's because it's starting high and shooting down really, really quick. What would actually be interesting, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm creating a new audio track, Command T. I'm going to take the input from this audio track. So remember, this first drop down menu here says, where do you want the sound to come from? Well, at the moment it's set to external in. I want it to come from this operator that we're just playing with, which is this synth stab here. So if I drop it down, see we've got 2 synth stab tracks. It's the second one that we're working on. So now the audio from the synth stab is going to come through here. So if I hit record, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record here. I'm going to get rid of this MIDI clip just so I can play the notes. I have to put MIDI here. And let's just hit play. So see how it's recording the notes that I'm currently pushing. So we can go to the synth stab. Let's change the pitch envelope. Let's change the decay time. Now you might be asking what the hell am I doing, but I think this gives a really good idea of how the envelope actually affects the end waveform. So this is the waveform that we've just created. I've just resampled it, if you like, from that operator channel. Let's open it up and have a look. So if I zoom in to where I started playing it, here's our waveform. So here's a sine wave, right? And this is the bass note that we were playing. But by adding the pitch envelope value, the sine wave starts higher, so the waveform is closer together, so it's compressed down. So if I solo this track and play from here, you can hear that little bit of a punch is from this waveform starting a little bit quicker and then slow, and then just very quickly getting to its value. And we made it a bit more extreme up here somewhere. So if we look here, a bit further down, yeah. So for instance, this one had a bit of a it's because it started much higher. And just finally, if we look at one of these waveforms here, look at that, and have a look and see what it's compared to. Let's open up our kick channel and go down. You can see how a kick drum is very, very, very similar. It starts off, the waveform is quite high pitched and it quickly slows down because you get that sweep of pitch down and that creates a bit of a punch. So there you go, bit of a tangent for you. Now I'm going to have to practice my Command Z skills so we can get back. So Command Z, Z, Z. Oh, that was pretty quick. And go into our operator. So, and we'll just solo the track, turn this back on so we can play the notes. So I was actually kind of liking where we were going with that. Let's play it. So at the moment, too much pitch envelope. We changed that to a sine wave. Let's change it back to a square wave, sorry. Pitch envelope, the decay is too long. Let's turn the filter on. Here's our envelope for our filter, so our little set of instructions for how this frequency works. At the moment, it's not affecting it at all because we see we have 0% on this envelope value. So it's not going to affect it all. Let's bring the envelope up a bit. It's quite cool. Turn this reverb on. Bring the decay time a bit down. Let's bring the size right down and the decay time down. It kind of gives a very closed space feeling. Don't like that. Turn the high cut off the reverb. So you notice this has a little filter that we can move around. So if it's here, the only thing that's going to be reverberated is what's in the low end. We can turn the high bit off so everything gets reverbed, or we can turn the low cut on so it's just stuff in the highs. Now let's turn our filter back on, which was doing that crazy shit before. So I've gone a bit off tangent here. I'm just going to turn the solo off and let's just listen to it now and see how it sounds. Don't forget the auto filter. We'll go from a few bars before as well. Those little clicks you can hear, they're coming from the constant changing of the time value on the delays. Not too much you can do about that, apart from use another delay. I don't seem to mind them. Let's bring the hats in. Not bad, still a bit of work to go on this drop, but you know, it's the most important bit so we can get working on it. Now just before I finish, there's no reason why this MIDI clip here, which is controlling our new sound, has to be that particular pattern. In fact, I'm going to change it. First, I'm just going to quickly bring the volume down of the left and the right chains of our delay because I find it a bit overwhelming. So let's make a new pattern. A good way to do this is if you're working on making a new melody or a new rhythm in a breakdown, it's better to work, well, I find it's better to work on that particular pattern when it's actually dropped with a kick and a bass, because then you can actually write it to fit the main theme. If we were just to spend some time working on this idea here and develop it, when it actually drops, we have no idea if it's actually going to sound good when it drops, but if we develop it when it drops, we can work backwards, which is good. So let's click here. And I'm going to do this by, I'm going to mute the bass. Just mute some stuff which aren't really necessary. Open hi-hats. And we'll get rid of those pads. And this one, of course. So I'm just going to delete this MIDI clip here. I'm going to introduce a new one by selecting the area of how big I want to introduce that MIDI clip. This is zoom in so we can get down. We go create, insert MIDI clip. Here's our clip, which is 2 bars long, and we'll drag it out. And holding down the Option key on Mac, we're going to click up the top here so we can set our loop points. And now we can open up the piano roll and we can work on a new theme. And you can hear that the release of this oscillator is quite long, so I'm going to click on the release and we're going to bring this right down. So when it was up, bring it right down. Now, I like a kind of arpeggiated melodic things. You may not, but this is what I'm going to do for this one. You don't necessarily have to do something melodic, but by arpeggiated melodic things, I mean I'd like to have kind of a whole bunch of notes playing, and they're going to do something kind of harmonious with each other. And I've found the best way to do that is so a lot of people kind of I see they'll kind of write notes and like this, and they'll do each one at a time, you know, like this kind of thing, which is all good. But I find it's better if you develop kind of a main simple theme first and then fill the gaps in between. For example, okay, let's just start by putting in notes in a kind of a triplet-y kind of feel. Quite cool. And now I can move these notes around. Now I've got a rhythm down, so I've just picked all the same notes. Remember, we're working in G. Let's make that note really long. Turn those bongos off, they're a bit distracting. So that's kind of a nice theme. Now I'm talking about filling in the gaps. So these are where all the notes aren't, and we don't have to use too many notes here. I'm just click on the side of the piano roll, drag it down a bit. If we use the G an octave below, and it's going to be pretty epic, and we probably won't use it, but just to give you an idea. If I fill in all the blanks here with this G, we'll put a B flat here. See how this melody kind of comes through. I've shortened these notes a bit just to make them not as obvious. fluffy little shit up here. Lead right down to it. It's kind of cool. It's not very loud. Where's our limiter? Let's bring this gain knob up. Do we have a let's bring this bass in. So I definitely don't like that big, where I go really high up here. It's a bit too epic. There's no reason why we have to fill this gap here either. We can do something completely utterly different here. For example, we can take this track, we can duplicate it again. Remember, like we did with the one above it, and make sure we delete that, because we only want this MIDI clip here. And if we zoom in, let's minimize these automation tabs here. Zoom in here. So we've got two tracks here. So this gap is where we want this one to play. We could do something as simple as dragging the MIDI clip across. Make sure the loop point is set. So now we can go into this operator and we can change the sound. So remember before, let's just select the loop point on one of these here. Remember before we were talking about how we can use one oscillator to modulate another one? I'm going to leave on this note just to give you a quick example of how this works. So if you are interested in it, you can go off and find some cool stuff. So I'm going to go back to this tab here. Remember when we can change the effects routings? We had this last one picked. We're going to select this one. So now this B oscillator will definitely affect this A oscillator. Let's turn it on and bring the level down so we can sweep it up to show you. Let's change this to a saw wave for now. Sine wave, sorry. And see if I bring C up, it's going to modulate the B. And D will modulate C. Let's change the wave shape of this oscillator to something saw. It's pretty cool. I'm going to chuck in an equalizer and just chunk it up a bit. And let's do something like, give it a, we'll get rid of this filter delay. Let's give it a chorus, see what happens. Right, so now if we play this whole thing, let's have a listen. this across like that, see what happens. It's quite cool, and we'll add a delay on this second one. The reason I added a delay was I found this this clip here ended a bit too abruptly. By adding a delay, very cool. So I'm going to leave it on that note. Still a lot of work to do on this drop. It's gotten a little bit messy, but that's good because it means we've got lots of stuff that we can pick away at and slowly shape how this works out. Yeah, join us in part 6. And always remember to save.